Yeah, that's interesting. Well, it's all very relevant. So I will sort of officially kick off this event this morning. So thank you for coming. And we are recording this for people who haven't made it. So if you're watching after the fact, thank you for joining. But this really will be for you guys to ask questions, and I'll go through sort of the book. But the conversations that we've been having already are so relevant. What I'm hearing is something that I have felt, and also conversations with people, that it's hard to make decisions these days. Decisions that balance our own and our family's health with the health of the environment and even the budget with these very, very man-made materials that are really everywhere. And some of them necessarily so, you could argue, but some of them maybe less necessarily so. So just a really quick introduction. So my name is Rachael Miller. I live right here in Granville. And I grew up in Saratoga, New York, but have been here for like 30 years. And I'm a water person. So for me, snow is still part of the water world. I'm not very graceful on my feet, but except if I have skis on. And my kind of reason to be is to protect the ocean and the lakes and rivers that feed her. And so 15 years ago, after spending a lot of time professionally connecting people to the water through wind and human-powered sports like sailing and paddling and things like that, I switched to protect the venue and started an organization called Rosalia Project for a Clean Ocean. It's named after my great-grandmother, for whom I am also named, and her name was Rosalia, and it's called the Rosalia Project. So we have been working on marine debris specifically. That is the ocean problem that we have been primarily focused on, and we use a couple strategies. We do data cleanup, so we collect information when we do a cleanup, but we're not a cleanup organization. We're solutions oriented, so we also do prevention through education, embrace innovation and technology, and do solutions-based research. And we address this problem from the surface to the seafloor or the lake floor or the river floor, wherever it is we are. So in addition to the shoreline, we are looking at the surface and underwater, and we focus on urban, coastal, and inland waters. There are things going on in the center of our ocean circulation patterns, in the center of the gyres, and we've learned about those in various ways, that there's accumulation zones. You've heard probably of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's not exactly what they said it was. You can't see it from space. It's not another continent, but it is a place where teeny tiny things that can't swim and some big things like plastics do accumulate. It's more of a microplastic soup out there. But we know that 80% or more.
Sorry, where was it?
So have you heard of the phrase Great Pacific Garbage Patch?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and so when it came out, it refers to the area in the North Pacific in the center of the circulation pattern. So think of like water swirling around a drain. When there's a drain, like in a sink, it goes away. But water spins, like the oceans, the big oceans, like the North Pacific separate from the South Pacific, or the North Atlantic, the South Atlantic, because of the way the Earth rotates and the uneven heating that the sun causes. It's pretty incredible. There are big circulation patterns. It's clockwise in the northern hemisphere, it's counterclockwise in the southern, and that spinning water without a drain ends up accumulating stuff that can't swim its way out in the center. And the center is where more trash has been found. And it was a little bit of hyperbole. Come on in. There's some hyperbole reported in the beginning that said you could walk on it, this like continent of trash. And while there are some big things, what's really out there is more of a microplastic soup that's been accumulated to the center of the North Pacific, sort of the center-ish of the South Pacific. And there's one in the Atlantic. Bermuda gets a lot of trash from other places. And it's because of their position in relation to, these are called gyres, the circulation patterns. They happen without people and without trash, whatever. They have nothing to do with trash other than the circulation pattern, then the existence of the trash in a gyre makes an accumulation zone in the center. And it's pretty interesting because Hawaii is more or less in that zone. And if you've ever been to the windward shore of Oahu, there's an incredible amount of microplastic there. And it's not from Hawaii. It's been swirled around the North Pacific and has ended up there. Bermuda experiences a similar thing. And there's other places in the world that are, we call them sinks as opposed to sources. And speaking of sources, one thing that we do know is that 80% or more of what ends up in our waterways, especially the ocean, comes from the land-sea interface. It comes from land. And so that's where Rosalia Project has focused our work, the land-sea interface, because we feel that is the most efficient and effective place to do this focus. And so while doing this work, and we've addressed derelict fishing gear, so things like lobster traps in Maine or and buoys and things like that, to nets and that kind of marine debris. That's a particularly immediately deadly style of marine debris, derelict fishing gear. Obviously, it's designed to catch creatures. And if it's not doing its job for a human, it may just be doing its job, like if it gets disconnected. The second type is consumer debris. So these are the single-use plastics, the stuff that we all use, like clothing and things, which isn't supposed to be single-use, but sort of ends up in the big range of consumer plastics. This is where you hear about bags and straws and bottles and stuff like that. And then we've been working on microplastics as well. Microplastics are difficult, obviously, because unlike the other two, this is a hard one to fix on the back end. I don't think we can fix the other ones without also addressing the sources. But for microplastics and the subcategories, we definitely need to prevent that because, this is stuff that's really small. So under microplastics, there's another subcategory that you might have heard of called microfiber. And I'm not talking about a microfiber cleaning cloth. Consider that with sort of a capital M. This is microfiber that happens when little pieces of fiber break off of a longer piece. So lint that you get in your dryer, that is part of microfiber. Those are bits of threads and fibers that broke off your textiles in the dryer, and now they're effectively waste. So that, it turns out, happens in the washer. That also happens when we wear our clothes. And these little tiny pieces of what are now micro, they started out long, end up in the environment. And with the other microplastics, like fragments, it turns out they are ending up in our bodies. So the urgency to address this problem has never been bigger, because now we are learning more. I've been working on this, my team and I have been working on this now for 15 years. And in the beginning, we didn't really have anything to say about the interaction with humans other than economic effects of like trashing beaches and things like that. And then, of course, the knock-on human effect of something that is having a negative effect on ecosystems. So animals are a little easier to research than humans. And so we do know quite a bit about the potential effect of plastics and microplastics in the animal world. And it's not great, as you can imagine. Some of the primary negative effects of the microplastics in creatures has to do with affecting reproduction and causing reproductive stress because of endocrine disrupting chemicals associated with plastics. And so those have been fairly well tested at this point. But what has changed, especially sort of in the last, let's call it 7 years, is detecting the presence of microplastics in our bodies, but without an associated ability to answer the question, so what? And in the last particularly 20 months, there has been a real turning point in the collective amount of peer-reviewed published science that has come out addressing the potential effects of inhaling and ingesting microplastics to human systems. And the correlations have been found, so there still isn't direct causation. We haven't pointed at someone's cancer or someone's infertility and said this was caused by like specifically, they inhaled X plastic and it has caused this. However, there have been some very compelling correlation-related studies that have matched an increase in a group of people with a thing with the presence of microplastics. And some of the symptoms that people have experienced that are correlated with the presence of microplastics in whatever system do include something that came up earlier, which is dementia, with gastrointestinal distress and colon cancer, infertility. This stuff's been found throughout reproductive systems in men and women, like across kind of name a part of the reproductive system, it's been found there. And inflammation in general. And this is a hard one to pin down, obviously, but is something that is also difficult. So that's the bad news. That is the bad news. All going to get better from here. So when thinking about all that, I've had a lot of, we do work that is really solutions focused. And actually, I just forgot, I'm going to grab my core ball. Hang on, I'm going to be right back. So we are working on solutions in all different ways. Solutions that make life easier, that reduce your consumption, that reduce your exposure, that reduce all of our exposure. Solutions that are kind of education related and action related and innovation related. One is the core ball. This is something that you put in the washing machine, and it helps your clothes last longer by reducing the production of microfiber. So when you produce microfiber, that is a reduction in what your clothes once were. So think of a t-shirt getting really soft and lovely. Well, that's the absence of material that used to be there. Or like when our jeans go white, that's the absence. And that's, that stuff had to go somewhere, and unfortunately we're sort of starting to find it. So the core ball helps reduce microfiber shedding in your washing machine. That's one solution. I also have a list of things you can do to reduce it without even putting anything in, like cold water and doing full loads of laundry. And there are solutions out there that are more even than just consumer-related solutions. There are also solutions that we are encouraging and supplying data for to encourage innovation above consumers so that our choices are better. And policy opportunities to compel industries who may not find the will themselves to give us better options. So there are a ton of solutions out there, and I know that it can be overwhelming to find them sometimes, and also to just make decisions. So I give you decision making in the age of plastics. This is meant to reduce some of the angst. If you're thinking, oh my God, all of that information was horrific. This is to help parse it out and to make it personal. So, do you remember Choose Your Own Adventure books? I know, I loved them. If you don't remember, they started out with like a little story, and you'd read the story and it was exciting, but then it would stop. And then all of a sudden it would say something like, if you want to follow the tiger into the woods, go to page 25. But if you want to jump off the cliff and swim after a whale, go to page 42. And so my reading and your reading, or even my second reading of this same book would be different. And it was fun. It was fun and fulfilling. And I didn't want to write a textbook. I also know that not everyone in this room will ultimately need to make the same decision. You may have different goals, you have different risks, different parameters. And so it seemed like a choose your own adventure would be a good way to go about doing this. And so we'll do a little together. This is, so we're all gonna have different things, but we'll generally crowdsource this. So the beginning of the book does go into some basics about microplastics in particular, and plastic pollution. So there's a little bit of background information. My goal here was to weave science into this and reality. Science and reality, so that this is really, we really do need to stay warm and we can't all wear a moose. That's reality here in Vermont. I just went skiing. I do not want to wear a moose skiing. I don't want to wear wool only skiing because it would wear it just isn't going to work right now. It weighs too much. There's problems with that. So I still need some technical clothes. How do we kind of make those balances? But other people may be able to wear just wool. So those are the kind of compromises that that I want to help people make. So there's a couple more bits of structure for the book that are important to know. One is that it uses a 5-question decision-making framework because I also want people to feel armed with ability to apply this to buy anything, not just the 5 products that I address specifically. And those 5 questions are, why do you want the thing? Just like without going into crazed amounts of torturous thinking, just why do you want to buy a thing? 2 is, do you have something that will do the job? So just like quick moment, do you really need it? And then how is it made? Something about its provenance. Who made it? How is it made? What's the material? Then what is its useful life? How long is this thing going to last? And then what is its end of life? And if you can sort of you have answers for each of those 5 questions, I am completely confident that the collective act of purchasing will already be more fulfilling. And this isn't a book about no. This is just a book about like a very deliberate yes or a very deliberate no. But it's not a blanket, don't buy anything ever again. This is like a buy the thing that makes you happy and you've got a plan for it. The 5 products are a fleece jacket, or fleece really anything, but I use a fleece jacket. Food wraps and baggies, sort of a subcategory of general food containers. Glitter laundry detergent, because that's kind of complicated from a chemical way, and takeaway containers. Not what you get. I will not judge you. Like, get the French fries. Get the, whatever it is. I will get the French fries. But just what do they come in? And what are the consequences of what does it come in? And if you don't like it, here are some ways to maybe see if you can get that changed or reduce the problematic parts. So that is how this goes. And I thought, would you guys be psyched to do a little dive into the fleece jacket one? Or are you, yeah? Cool? All right. All right, so the first question, and I'm not going to necessarily read every single thing, but this will get the gist. Why, and we are a we for this. There will be like a collective human who wants a fleece jacket. So why are we considering a fleece jacket? So the options are, we are cold or we anticipate being cold. That's A. We saw it online, or we were strolling along and we saw one that was cute, like it caught our eye. We are bored or sad, and this will keep us warm and happy, literally and figuratively. That's C. So we're cold, it was cute, or we're just kind of looking for something to do. What do you guys think? You can raise your hand. A? A? Okay, that's great. So we're going to go to page 17, and 17 is going to say, legit, let's keep rolling. Certainly, I will not put an impediment. Now, if you saw it online and you go to that one, it says, all right, you're in danger of an impulse, like kind of a thing. So let's still keep going. And for the C one, I do a little dive, a little scientific dive into retail therapy, and it's fascinating. Turns out it's about control. And but it is a real thing. Like, you really do get a dopamine hit, but there's other ways to do it. And so I go into some of that. That was a fascinating little side thing for me. Okay, so we're cold. So we're just going to go on to page 24, which is question 2. Do we already own something that will do the job? So the book kind of lists some options. Oh, and I also illustrated it. And I wanted the illustrations to be familiar. Just kind of familiar. There's no pictures of like strangled animals or anything like that. In fact, all the animals are either Newfoundlands, which we had 2 Newfies and I love them, or they're animals that I have seen while doing expeditions to protect the ocean. And I just got back from Antarctica, which is, I've gotten to do some really cool sampling. So I've sampled the air and the water in all over. And I'm a National Geographic explorer for this work because we sampled the whole Hudson River. And through that, I've had the chance to be a visiting scientist on the National Geographic Lindblad expeditions. And so I was just on a ship. We sailed from Ushuaia down to the Antarctic Peninsula. And so I got to sample the surface water and the air in 12 locations around the peninsula. And that brought us to we're over at 40 plus locations as the third year. And we're learning the connection between where the people are and the people's stuff, especially, it turns out, microfiber, with remote places in the Antarctic and also the Arctic. And what's pretty fascinating is that what we mostly find, we don't find a ton of microplastic in these remote places, but we do find some, and most of it fits in the characteristics that are described by clothing. Very interesting. Okay, so we already own something that will do the job? Do we sort of have something? So the next question is, or the next answer, sort of. We have an old fleece that is somewhat uninspiring. We're not sure we're not sure if it will do what the new one will do for us. Or no, we are cold just thinking about our wardrobe and how inadequate it is for the chill in our bones. We're moving on. Yeah, we're moving on no matter what. So we're going to go to question 3. And this is where you really now get to the heart of the matter when it's looking at, I want something to keep me warm. So that's fundamentally what we're talking about here. So I looked into the options that are out there for a fleece jacket, which would be sometimes an outer layer, but sometimes an inner layer. And here they are. And then we'll just pick which one we want to dive into. Oh, the first one says, wait, after learning about shedding, which I do a little bit of a discussion about the fact that all fleece sheds. It doesn't matter what the material is. And so that may become a concern for someone and they're out. And I do suggest that you can stay warm with a puffer, and a puff jacket is very, very, very low shed. It is synthetic, but it's low shed. And so some people who may kind of get oriented to the shedding situation and realize that's their biggest concern can now kind of cut out of this and look for a puff instead. So let's pick one of the fleece options. So we can do wool, we can do recycled polyester or recycled nylon, we can do virgin polyester or 100% virgin nylon, or it turns out that you can have a virgin poly or recycled polyester / nylon blend. What would you guys like to dive? Wool, you can just put your hands up when I do it. Wool, recycled polyester or recycled nylon, virgin, synthetic, or a virgin or recycled blend of synthetics. Sure. Yeah, see, we should learn about that.
Well, is there any data, before I make my decision,
Yeah.
is there any data that shows that any of the recycled stuff sheds less because it's recycled?
Yeah, so this is a great question. All right, we'll do a highlights of each because I want you guys to learn what you want to learn. So just on the list, recycled is next, so that's page, oh no, actually the nylon one is page 33. Okay, so each of these is organized by performance, care and lifespan, sustainability, and cost. So, so for the blend, you'll find that it is lightweight, durable, and quick drying, but has relatively poor breathability compared to wool, and is less soft, I found out, than 100% polyester, and will likely have issues with odor retention, which we've probably all experienced to some extent. In terms of care and lifespan, this was something I didn't realize until I sort of started reading about it. Nylon is has a much lower melt temperature than polyesters. So it is susceptible to heat. Yeah, totally didn't know. So if you have something with nylon present, you can't put it in the dryer like you would other things. You wouldn't want to lean up against anything hot, like it melts. And so it is a little harder to care for. Polyester has a much, much higher temperature before it starts to break down or melt or anything like that. Oh, and the nylon will also shrink a bit. So it said, I found out that the blend is considered generally resistant to overall wear and tear, but again, fleece is high shed, and this one's really hard on the back end, which we would get to, but the blend makes it nearly, at this point in time, unrecyclable, whereas a 100% polyester only, you have a very, very high chance of keeping it in what we call a technical loop. So keeping it, at least then it could be something else again. So it's the weakest of everything for sustainability, in my opinion, because it has absolutely right now no end of life at all. There's no end of life plan for a blend. This is something that since I learned about this, I do still buy things sometimes that are synthetic, but I do look for as much sameness as I possibly can find, and a company that'll take it back. So those are some of the biggest problems with the blend. And then let's just have a look at the recycled. So in terms of the recycled side, and I just want to, I agree that it's sort of sheddability is key here. And I remember finding some papers that said that that there wasn't a huge difference. So let me just quick read this. So again, on care and lifespan, it depends. This was sort of handling separately recycled polyester, recycled nylon, high shed, significant difference. Okay. Recycled form, they're better from the front end for sure. But we have found, or there's been some science that doesn't necessarily say that it's worse or significantly better. So for me, that makes it better. Kind of going through, oh yeah, here, I knew it was here somewhere. So I do have a study specifically that found no statistically significant difference in shedding between virgin and recycled thick mid-layer style fleece polyester fleece garments, both in washing and abrasion tests. And everything that is cited, you can find the article. So that was good news to me. That was good news to me. And these are often recyclable again, which is great. Okay, so let's say that we chose, since we're here, are we happy to move on with, say we like the recycled. Should we move on? Okay. So the next question with fleece specifically, other ones aren't necessarily like this. It doesn't matter with a puffer. Sort of cheap and expensive puffers, I don't think from an absolute like textile have a big shed difference. But I can tell you that cheap fleece, scientifically, shed a lot more than higher end or well-made fleece. Now, not everyone can necessarily buy the good stuff, but if you're looking for just a sort of rule in your head that if there's a way to get the good stuff, and sometimes that's by going to like Patagonia's Worn Wear or Outside or REI, all have really good, clean, pre-worn clothes. Sometimes you can find them at thrift stores. Those are still better than a new $5 or $8 fleece from Shane or Temu or whatever. So for people that don't have the budget to get a better fleece but still want to stay warm, again, I would orient them towards a less expensive puffer for overall less exposure. So let's just say we're okay. We've found a well-made fleece that we can afford. So now we're going to go to who makes it. I don't really go into who makes it for stuff like the laundry detergent or the food wraps and bags and things like that, food containers, because you often have no idea. And it's too hard to know. But for clothing, I think it is very important to just have a look and see that you're happy with the company that makes it. And the book goes through some categories by which one can assess a company. So things like looking for industry-specific supply chain certifications, like Blue Sign, there's a couple that are specific to garments in here. Environmental, economic, and social certifications, that would be like fair trade, like how they treat people. Looking for philanthropy programs, is part of what you're spending going for give back programs or something like that. You may or may not like that. See if they have a take back, end of life, or resale program for this one. This is right now one of my criteria for buying technical clothes, that the company takes it back. Then question 5, which is what's your end of life plan? if I'm not going to give it to somebody, then I know I can wear this through. I can wear it to the point where it fails, and then it gets to stay in a technical loop. And what I mean by that is it means it becomes a new garment, ideally, and that new garment doesn't have to be from extracted fossil fuel-based sources. So it's still kind of in the fossil fuel world, but only kind of once. And so again, like weighing all this up, that is a huge benefit for me. And there are plenty of outdoor companies now that are taking back everything that they will sell you. And sometimes you even get a little bit of money for it.
And how do you send it? Do you send it back, or what do you do?
Yeah, so it depends on the company. If you buy it in person, often these are the bigger companies, and so they do have stores. So Patagonia, and in the interest of full disclosure, they have funded Rosalia Project. They are not currently, but I do trust them. And you can bring them back to a Patagonia store, like the one in Burlington, or you can mail it. So there's some options. And there are other companies, I think Mountain Hardware does. I don't know if it's every single thing. REI has to take back across different brands. I don't know how they deal with that specifically. So it's not that hard to find. Not everybody has it, but if you're like, I want a technical thing to keep me warm, or whatever, biking clothes, whatever, it's a fascinating dive to look and see what they'll do for you. Yeah.
I know we participate in about 5 TerraCycle programs.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure currently if they have a clothing, because they
That's a
have
great
They
question.
have so many programs.
Mm-hmm.
They have over 100 free programs.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, that they'll send you the shipping label for free. So you ship it back, and it doesn't even cost you anything.
What is this now?
TerraCycle, Terra cycle.
And what is that?
It's recycling what you want to get rid of.
The hard stuff. So the stuff that doesn't go in your blue bin.
Right, the stuff, exactly. They did, they might.
What was the question?
Flower
Like
pots.
flower pots?
Oh, that's a good question.
Those are hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. And would have you ever tried to call what's the Intervale, the one in the Intervale, Gardener Supply? Like a
I
big,
haven't talked to them, but I looked online and there are some nurseries that will take them back if you are a landscape professional, but otherwise not.
because they're afraid of disease or like, I don't know what. Yeah, weird. Well, that's a good one. I'm going to remember that one. I'm just going to write that down. Because that's a good one if we had an answer for that. Because that's a...
I don't know, maybe just do a general search, who recycles plastic flower
I've
pots.
been searching for off and on
Yeah.
for years.
No one yet?
Because it's not a normal, it's not a 1, 2, or 5 plastic. It's a 7,
Well,
right?
I think there are some pots that are recyclable, the normal,
Mm-hmm.
the town recycling program, but a lot of them aren't. They just kind of stack up in my garage.
And these are ones that you don't have a choice about. Like the plant is in the pot. Yeah.
So if you want the plant.
If you want the plant, you're getting whatever it is that they've
Yeah, so
put it
you
in.
have to grow it yourself in something else.
Yeah.
If you want to buy it.
Well, that's a good, yeah.
What was that?
So again,
I didn't catch what you said. Come here.
Oh.
Those plastic trays, when you have like 8,
You like flower gardening stuff where you're like, I want that plant. And it just comes in a pot. You don't have a choice. You can't like say, I want that plant, but in terracotta or in a 1, 2, or 5 plastic, all of which are recyclable pretty reliably. You know, it's probably a 7 or a like 5 or something that you can't, or sorry, like a 6 or 7, some kind of PVC or something that you can't recycle. It's a good question, thank you. I wish I had an answer for that one. So, and then I had one more just about the company is doing a search for the company that gives it reviews that are not on its own website. I know that I've met a friend's mom actually got kind of caught out on, not quite scammed, but buying something that really was awful. And they're like, but it were great reviews. And then we realized that they had just looked at the reviews like within the orbit of that company's control. And that sometimes you find news articles or other reviews, and reviews are tough. Not mostly happy people don't leave reviews. So you take reviews with a grain of salt, but if you are on the fence, particularly, you're like, I don't know, is look for the gist of the reviews that are outside of the company's control. Okay, so let's just say we're happy with the company. So we are going to move on to question 4. Okay, question 4 is all about lifespan. So how long will we use it? Is it repairable? Or is this sort of not, it's not going to be one and done, because we are looking at a fleece garment here. Right now, I think we have chosen recycled polyester fleece jacket, where clearly it's not going to be short. But do we want to say, we anticipate using this for a long time, or we only really need it for a special trip or adventure? We live in Vermont. We need it. Like, it was like minus whatever last week in the single digits of December. I will say, though, if you have friends that are from warm places and they're like, guess what, I'm going to Antarctica. Like, I just was on this ship with a lot of people who don't need to own the gear that they needed down there. And it's fascinating, but the ships offer a gear rental for those people. And so they get a duffel bag full of thermals and neck warmers and gloves, like big outerwear gloves and beanies and all this stuff that they don't have to buy. And I thought that was genius. I'd never heard of that. And it made me think about, well, I could do that for a friend if they said, I'm going to Antarctica. I'm like, you live in Florida. Do you have anything? I could send her a box of stuff to borrow, and then she could just ship it back. And that footprint is so much better than them buying something and wearing it for 2 weeks. So I thought that was a fun road to follow. But we need this. So we live in Vermont, so let's go to page 50. Okay. So my first stop here is a little note about repairing clothing. How many of you sew? Some of you. Yeah, my mom's so good. She used to make all my clothes as a little kid. I'm terrible. I can get the job done, but it's hideous. So I do have a little bit of information here about repairing clothing and what is likely that you can do alone. You guys could do a lot of this. Some of it I need to find someone else. Okay, so we're going to carry on to the next section. And the next section is very specific to the end of life plan. So, are we going to keep this indefinitely? Are we going to likely pass it along to a family member or friend, or donate, upcycle, or recycle it when we're done with it? Or we don't know, we're going to throw it away? Okay, yeah, I agree. I will show you the drawing for I don't know, throw it away. There's very few times when I say no, you cannot make this decision. Like, this is a no. So I try not to let the reader get away with that and be like, all right, I'm gonna turn back and go pick something else. It doesn't have to be like that. Okay, so here are some options for end of life. Have you guys ever gotten rid of a fleece jacket that you can think of?
Of what?
A fleece jacket. Yeah, how?
Or fleece,
Yeah.
shirt, whatever,
Yeah, donate or friend or donate. Yeah, some of you. So right, so that is the first. Find a local charity, somebody, especially if it's in good, it has to be in good condition for that. That's kind of a great bet, especially here in Vermont. We know that warm clothes are needed by a fairly large population. So if we have something that's still in great shape, that's an easy one. Checking for the take-back program. We sort of already talked about that when vetting the company in the first place. And that is really good when the garment is not in donatable condition. That would be stained, slightly ripped, excessively worn, or anything you're like, if I won't wear it, it's one thing if you don't need it, but if you won't wear it because of things that are amiss, then charity may not be the right thing. So take back program for me is the absolute next best thing. Those are the top two. So then there's selling it. This is also in good condition, and you can get a little money back and put it towards whatever it is that you need. And it's pretty incredible. There's a lot of online marketplaces now that are very specific to genres of things. So it'd be like outdoor clothing specific, that kind of thing. And that's great. And then there's things like Poshmarks and that. I had a friend who just got some nice wool. She also is trying to replace some of her synthetic, like turtleneck under layers that still are kind of near her face with wool. And she found some amazing ones for like $15 on Poshmark, which I thought was only clothes that you'd wear to work or to a party, but it turns out there are people selling their athletic clothes. Wool is an interesting one because it sort of depends on what wool, if it's organic down to the dyes, you might be able to compost that. Like if it's done, it's stained, you can't wear it or whatever. But you got to know like where it came from and what the other chemicals are so we don't put them in the seeds. You know, before we started, we were talking about the vulnerability of the plants. And you have to be careful about composting dryer lint or clothes of any kind because there's creep in, there's a lot of stuff that's crept in there. So I came across a great website that was like, just make new stuff out of your wool jacket or wool dress or wool whatever. And their suggestions were mittens, leg warmers. They're coming back under the name boot topper. Beanies, mug cozies, and more. Yeah, so someone says boot topper, they're just talking about leg warmers. And I thought that was great. Material-specific recycling options you might need to do. So that would be 100% recycled or polyester, harder if it's nylon, that kind of thing. But sometimes people are very specifically looking for a particular material. Then there might be local guidelines that you have to follow as you're looking at end of life. It turns out that Massachusetts stopped allowing textiles in landfills, which I think is amazing. That was in November of 22. And yet, when I meet people from Massachusetts, I would say it's about 50-50 that they even know that that's a thing and that there's a way to get rid of it, which I thought was a fascinating. It's like so moving in the right direction, but needs the infrastructure to follow up this really great idea. Find a local upcycling shop. So have you guys heard of a shop in Burlington called The Sandbox? It's on Pine Street, and it's an upcycling shop for garments. They'll fix stuff for you if you don't have the skills. They do batch dyeing, which I think is so genius. So say you have something that's good, but you drooled on it one too many times, or you're like me and like dropped stuff on it, stained. But if it were a darker shade, you wouldn't be able to see the stain or whatever. And so they do batch dyeing to resurrect clothes that might otherwise be done. I love that. So we have one in Burlington, and I hope that this is something that catches on. I think it's genius. So it's I call that an upcycling shop, and that one's dedicated to clothing. And then my last 4 garments is to look into a new thing called collectively recycling bags. Effectively a TerraCycle, but very specifically for clothes. And I think you might be right that TerraCycle may not do textiles.
Sure, I haven't really looked.
It's a can of worms. And so they may have decided like we're taking every other thing under the sun, like toothbrushes and all that stuff and electronics. But there are some companies where you buy a bag, it's like a big bag, and you put all of your clothing related items in it, so you can't put like toys or something, and send it back, and they promise to do responsible things with it. And so they do something with the stain stuff and something different with the good stuff, and then you get a credit and you can buy other things, or you've just done something responsible.
Like trashy.
Yes, trashy.
I've used them, they're great.
Oh, have you? Oh, great. I haven't met very many people, so you had a good experience?
Yeah, I think it costs $20 to buy a bag, and it's huge, and they'll take any clothes, even if it's completely worn out and covered with paint. All they ask is that it's clean, and they'll take shoes as well, which is great.
That's good to
And
know.
you send it in, and the postage is already paid on it, and they promise to do something sustainable with it. And then they give you a credit to buy something else, someplace else.
That's
Yeah.
nice. That's good to know.
Yeah, Trashie, Trashie. Yeah, yeah, oh, that's good to know. Because I have heard that the drop-off bins that are sort of nameless and faceless, like sometimes they're just in like park and rides or that kind of place, they're hard to vet, and it is hard to know where the stuff goes. And we know that there is a problem with exported piles and piles of exported textiles to Peru and Ghana in particular, where they have overwhelmed both the sort of social and physical environments of the area. So they've killed off local fashion industries, because how can a local person compete with like a $2 whatever? And then they've overwhelmed just the physical space, and they end up on, there's terrible photographs and images of clothes on beaches and stuff like that. So there are some things to do with this stuff. And think about it, if before buying, so moving forward, if before buying something, you also have an eye to what's going to happen at the end, I think there'll be a collective reduction in some of these big problems. And that is the goal. What happens now is it says, after you've read about all that, that we realize there's a more sustainable, healthier, affordable option for us, and we're out. We realize that we already own something that will do the job, and we're happy, and we're out. Or the fleece that we were considering does what we needed to do in a way in which we are comfortable. We are excited to move forward with this purchase. And so the book kind of celebrates all of those decisions, because you got there deliberately with some knowledge. And that's what it's about. So does anyone have any questions or other topics that you'd like to discuss? We're just about 10 minutes to the top of the hour.
How does that Coraball work?
Oh, the Coraball, the question is, how does the Coraball work? You put it in the wash with your everyday clothes. You wouldn't put it in with anything like lacy or with like a spaghetti strap, or like if you had artfully ripped jeans with long threads, you're gonna skip it. And it cruises around. And one thing, we think that it reduces shedding by holding your garments apart. I think one of the problems in a wash is like garment to garment abrasion. And so that's why doing 3/4 to full loads reduces shedding, because the clothes aren't like when you only do like a couple things, they're all like this and they're rubbing against each other. And it doesn't always, it depends on your laundry and a lot of factors. It can also collect some of what would otherwise go out the drain. So that is the sort of Coraballs. And we've had the Coraball going, it's made entirely in Vermont, for 8.5 years. So it's a bit of an investment up front, but it's lasting 8.5 years in people's washing machines without showing any signs of abrasion or causing microplastic at all. So that's...
Pull fibers out of it?
So that's a good question. Like, what do you do? What we recommend is that when you see a fuzzball that looks like it's going to fall off by itself, you just grab it and throw it away with your dryer lint. But if it's kind of really stuck in there, which it usually does, leave it. It helps get more. So you don't have to clean it. In the beginning, we had people like with crochet hooks, like pulling all this fuzz out. And you can't really tell, but I have like Tina Turner hair. And so it actually did help, or does help collect some of like, so my husband doesn't have to deal with like all that happening. And the newfies, when we had them, we did collect some of that, but I can't guarantee it. Depends on like the type of dog hair. But we did find that it also collected up the hair and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I would like your thoughts on either on a personal level that we could do, or on a larger proactive level. Because I read recently that because solar and wind will take off regardless who's in power, that the fossil fuel industry wants to triple its output of plastics by 2050. So what can we do personally besides doing the things that we do in the book,
Yep,
as well as doing on a larger level,
yeah.
bigger level?
No, this is a great question. I think the two biggest things are supporting legislation, and so sometimes that means supporting the humans, sometimes that means supporting the data collection to support the policies, or supporting somehow the policy directly, like in direct votes. You know, there's those three kind of ways of policies that say there's a limit, you know, whatever that is. Bans on bags when there's good, you know, there's good alternatives there. There's very little reason we need that. At some point, there may be a policy related to a sort of total maximum daily load of microfibers that are allowed to go out a washing machine. And so right now, people are working on inline washing machine filters that do the job, which is what we need. This can't be the solution forever. This is a solution, but it needs to be something inline, ultimately. You know, we did this and we got something fast that makes a difference right away, but ultimately, it would be great to support that our washing machines do the job, and we don't need to buy another thing, and we don't need to do more stuff other than clean out a filter. So that's one, is support policy, and the people that support policy are. Another is voting with our wallets, and nicely, I'm a fan of nice requests to companies, but tell them why you are or aren't buying their stuff. Because there's one thing when people don't buy something, but it's another when people don't buy something and say why, so that the company knows. Because we have precedent for that, making change. One older example is, you guys remember when Cheerios still used GMO ingredients? And everyone stopped buying Cheerios, and they all bought the little like heart Cheerio imposters at health food stores. I don't know if you remember those, but like people stopped buying Cheerios and started buying those like heart healthy, non-GMO Cheerio substitutes. And General Mills was like, whoa. And then they took GMO out of their Cheerios. And it was straight up economics of the people. You know, it feels like we're powerless, but when a lot of us do one thing, we are anything but powerless. And that's an example. And even just recently, when the whole thing with the Jimmy Kimmel thing came up. Jimmy Kimmel got kicked off the air, is all controversial. The reason for it sort of doesn't matter, but people in masses canceled their Disney subscriptions, because Disney ultimately was the one who made that decision. And what happens nearly immediately? Jimmy Kimmel gets his job back. I mean, so it's not even like it's old news that collectively we have power when it comes to financial things. Like, this is financial. This isn't some other thing. This is straight up economics. We will buy this thing. We will not buy that thing. But you have to, in my opinion, the people have to know why. Disney knew why they had all those subscriptions canceled. People were very vocal. Don't fire Jimmy Kimmel for what he said, period. And they're like, oh, we'll dial that back. You can affect the behavior of the decision makers if you are not a decision maker. Sometimes it feels lonely, like there are not enough of the me's. And then so in that case, you know, you kind of share why you're doing it with people, but we can change that behavior. Yeah, that's I hope that feels more hopeful than not. Cool. Well, thank you. We can wrap up the feed. Thank you for joining us from your own homes. And if you guys are interested in a book, I also have 100% wood cutting boards that we make here in Vermont. There's no plastic, no resin, no wax, no glue, just a piece of Vermont maple. It's also, hopefully you guys have all already replaced your plastic cutting boards. It does turn out that every time you chop on a plastic cutting board, it releases a bunch of microplastics straight into your food. So we've made just sort of an everyday cutting board. So I have some of those here. They're also available online. But thank you for coming out this Saturday morning and just for your great attention in this discussion. And I'm happy to keep talking, but I don't want to take up your whole mornings as well. Awesome.
So you were just talking about like cutting boards and stuff, and do you go into that type of stuff in the book?
I don't do cutting boards in this one, but certainly address like food exposure through the two sections, the food wraps and baggies and the takeaway containers.
Because I always am interested in like what you're using while you're cooking, cast iron.
Yes.
These other things, and so I'd be that information would be.
I'm so glad to hear, because I am debating on, like, this is going to be a series, and right now my two next ones are decision making in the age of plastics kitchen, and then decision making in the age of plastics parties, because oh my God, my friends are like, my kid just came back from a party with a bag of plastic, bleh, just like, and I don't know what to do. Or like, she's covered in glitter, and I don't want the glitter in the house. Or they're like, I'm gonna throw a party, and I don't know what to do, because there's this expectation, and I need like the words. I need the words, or I need the plan, I need some alternatives. So those are the two I'm thinking about.
Kitchen, I think would be really great.
Awesome, I appreciate that.
Especially the Teflon stuff.
Yeah, and we would completely deal with all these chemicals in addition to the plastics. So I do the chemical stuff for the laundry detergent one. So there's a little bit about that. So, but yeah, oh, that's good feedback. Yeah, so I just want people to be healthier and like useful, and we've made some changes too. I think back, I'm like, it really wasn't that long ago. I was still reheating Chinese food in the container it came in. Ah! Like, no, now I know. Like, don't do that. Like, yeah. I mean, at least if I use the microwave, it's in a ceramic or glass container, at least. But I'm thinking, geez, yeah. And there's just people, like, it's still kind of new, and you guys are all on it. But there's a lot of people who are inadvertently, I think, causing some harm to their families. But thank you.